Nigerians are now paying less for petroleum products as a result of price modulation policy of the Petroleum Products Pricing Regulatory Agency. Let's get details in this report.
Statutorily enshrined in the PPPRA Act of 2003 is the responsibility to moderate pricing for the petroleum industry in Nigeria. In performing this role, the agency commenced the Petroleum Products Price Modulation Framework on the 1st of January 2016 with the aim of ensuring a fit-for-all approach that seeks to serve the interest of the Nigerian consumers, marketers, and the economy at large. In furtherance of its mandate to ensure the efficient supply and distribution of petroleum products in the country, the Petroleum Products Price and Regulatory Agency announced a new price band for petroleum products in March this year. The crash in prices of crude oil at the international market as a result of the coronavirus pandemic prompted the Nigerian government to reduce the petrol pump price from 145 naira per litre to 125 naira per litre. Moving forward, the country's agency further reviewed the price of premium motor spirits downwards. The PPPRA, in a memo titled Guiding Price for Premium Motor Spirits in the month of June, addressed to marketers advised that the products must not be sold outside the band of 121 naira 50 kobo to 123 naira 50 kobo per litre. The agency also fixed the band for ex-depot price at between 102 naira 13 kobo and 103 naira 13 kobo per litre. The Petroleum Products Pricing Regulatory Agency has made it clear that marketers are not allowed to fix pump prices of petroleum products, particularly the premium motor spirit known as petrol. The Executive Secretary of the agency, Abdulkadir Saidu, says the agency will monitor market trends and advise the NNPC and all marketing companies on the monthly market-based guiding price, which shall include the indicative retail price at which the product shall be sold across the country. The removal of PMS price cap and implementation of a market-based pricing regime was first announced by the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Temitope Silva, in March this year.
An energy lawyer and the chairman OTL Africa Downstream, Emeka Kabogu, joins me now via Skype to look at these issues and other issues affecting the petroleum downstream sector in the country. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, let's start with the move by the minister says they've removed the price cap and implementation of a market-based pricing regime. Make us to understand what this means. And now coming back to the PPRA is coming back to say that operators or oil marketers cannot fix prices on their own.
Well, I mean, it sounds like discordant tunes from the government, with the minister saying one thing and the PPPRA saying another. However, what is based on the law will be the position of PPPRA, because PPPRA has cited Section 7 of the PPPRA Act as the basis for the position it has taken. Now, the summary of the position that the PPPRA has taken essentially is that there is no full price deregulation as at today. What it is doing just means that the control of pricing for petroleum products in Nigeria is still absolutely under the control of PPPRA and not under the control of the markets. So the PPPRA has said that it will be guided by market forces in setting a band, and it has further instructed that the market operators must comply with the price band which has been set. So as it is, we have a regime of pricing which is under the control of PPPRA and not market-driven, as is suggested. So that is the reality that operators have to deal with.
At the moment, now NNPC is the sole importer of petroleum products into the country. So at what time are we going to get to that? It shows that oil marketers cannot bring in products at this time, considering what is on ground.
Certainly, they can't. And let me try and give you what the implication of that situation is.
Please do.
The implication of what PPPRA has set out is simply that marketers, investors, would not have the confidence nor the guarantees to go out and import petroleum products. It's as simple as that. And the reason is because there are no policy guarantees, and the situation which you have now can change at any time whatsoever. So a marketer who is going out to put down a significant amount of money to bring in a parcel of products has no guarantee of return of investment. The implication is that they can't import, simple. And if they're unable to import, it also means that NNPC will remain the sole supplier of products in the market. I know that recently NNPC has come out to say that going forward, it will be driven by market forces, okay? So if you have a situation where, for any reason whatsoever, the government of the day feels, whether by virtue of political pressure or, pro-socialist sentiments, that you suddenly have a situation where the government could decide to instruct PPPRA to change the regulation and make it one where the price band falls lower than what the market determines, then what happens? Furthermore, even if operators decide to proceed with the current regime where PPPRA will set the prices, there is no clarity as to the variables which PPPRA takes into consideration in coming to that particular price regime. For instance, while the PPPRA may have standard basis for determining international benchmark prices for the market, it may not always have the peculiar circumstances of each market operator in mind when it comes to other cost drivers, such as demurrage, such as storage, such as trucking. These are cost drivers which often are peculiar to individual operators, and in a competitive environment, the individual operators will price their products according to the final costs of at the pump or ex-depot. So these scenarios make it such that the market for now, for marketers, is clearly uncomfortable and one which offers no guarantees. So what I say is that there will not be any significant, if any at all, imports by private sector operators until such a time that a clear, positive policy for both the market and consumers has been defined. And that hasn't been done yet.
So this takes us to the Price Control Act, which many say is obsolete and we need to review our laws. How does this come to you?
Well, certainly, I have said it severally, that the key legislation on which price capping is currently driven needs to be reviewed. So PPPRA is able to issue the regulations it has because it is acting based on the PPPRA Act, which gives it power to set a price band. Also, the minister could, and in this case, the Minister of Petroleum, which is actually the president, could decide to set prices independently based on the Petroleum Act. We also have the Price Control Act, which gives the government the power to set a price cap on several commodities, one of which is petroleum products. So these are a range of legislation which give governments the power to set prices for petroleum products. Now, if truly we want to fully deregulate, what needs to be done is actually simple. It's understandable that there are sentiments and arguments which are anti-deregulation. But the large number of economic analysis of which we have seen across board suggests that we need to fully deregulate the market. So this is what my suggestion is for the government at this time. There could be a long-term medium-term or short-term approach to trying to define what needs to be done. For me, in the long-term approach will be to overhaul the existing legal framework by passing the PIB. Okay? Now, there may be challenges to doing that because we have seen that the antecedent suggests a lack of political will, if I may put it at that. So, if we don't follow the long-term option, the medium-term option may be to amend the Petroleum Act, the PPPRA Act, and the Price Control Act, only to the extent that it insists that these acts insist that prices may be capped and give powers to either the president, the minister, or PPPRA to cap the prices. So that's a medium-term approach which we may take. And because we know that the National Assembly is well disposed to the president, it shouldn't be a problem having these specific provisions of these acts amended. Of course, a short-term approach, which could be a quick win, pending when the government decides on a more long-term option, could be to amend the Gazette on the regulations which PPRA has just issued. And that one is what I'd say is a quick win, which is within the power of the PPPRA, of course, with the approval of the minister. And what I suggest that they do is, in amending that Gazette, for them to include an express commencement date to the application of the terms that they've put forward, and also include a very clear duration for the application of the regulations. What this would occasion will be that importers, marketers could, in the near term, import with confidence to the extent that they are within the duration of the application of the regulations. So that even if, after the expiry of the application of the regulations, cargo which has been brought in within the duration of that time could be sold at market-driven rates, thereby guaranteeing return on investment. If at that time government wants to extend the duration, it may, or if it wants to come up with a new policy, it may. But it guarantees return on investment for the period during which the regulations are applicable to marketers. So these are options which are open for the government to take at this time, and many of them will add value to the present circumstances.
Let me ask you this question. The market on kerosene and diesel has been fully deregulated. How well would you say, what effect would you say that has actually had on the market? That's talking about petroleum products market.
Good, that's a very good question. Now, these markets have been fully deregulated, and I've also posed the question to marketers. It does seem that the market pricing has not fully reflected the international pricing. And that is the precise reason why you need to have full deregulation, where you not only have the market operators determining broad pricing, but you have a competition regulator, in which case the PPPRA can serve excellently as that. So a competition regulator, the role of a competition regulator is to ensure that you do not have cartelization, by which I mean operators coming together to agree to sell particular products at certain prices, okay? So if you do have an economic regulator, more or less, a competition regulator in the form of PPPRA, it is able to determine at what points in time operators in the market are taking advantage of dominant positions which they may have to the detriment of consumers. So it is at that point, it's no longer price regulation, but you are regulating their operations and more or less their morality, if I may put it at that, to such a way that they will operate strictly within the bands of what is realistic on the day. Of course, there's also the argument by marketers often that many times you have situations where, irrespective of the international pricing, local circumstances contribute to the added pricing which they have. So you've got local circumstances which include significant demurrage occasioned by congestion at the ports and at the jetties, also occasioned often by other activities which are happening within the waters, including customs rates and the like. So there needs to be an end-to-end involvement of regulatory interventions to ensure that priority products have the access which they need to have, and the costs of bringing in these products remains minimum to ensure that the market pricing also is reasonable in the circumstances. Sounds
very, very interesting there. I want to see how all of this plays out, because Nigeria, they want supply. And in 60 seconds, I'd like to ask this question. What if something happens to the price of crude as we move on in the year? We can't predict that market. What will happen to the price of fuel in Nigeria?
Going by what PPPRA has said, if the price of crude increases and the international benchmark price of petroleum products also increases, then the pump price will definitely have to increase. It's as simple as that. Of course, what has to happen is that the operations of the marketers needs to be so efficient that they're able to take advantage of their scale and reduce costs which arise from other factors outside international benchmarks, such as logistics and such as port operations, shipping, and the like. So if international crude prices increase, chances are that the price of petrol at the pump will certainly increase.
Mr. Emeka Akabogu, Chairman OTL Africa Downstream and an energy lawyer, thank you very much for your time on Business Nigeria, breaking this down for Nigerians to understand.